Hello, listeners, and welcome back to another episode of the No Nay Never podcast. I'm your host, Natalie Bromley, and joining me this week is our panellists, Tom Whittaker and George Poole. In part one, we look at a fabulous result at a rocking Turf Moor as the Clarets come back from 2-0 down to get a last-gasp equaliser to give us a point in the opening fixtures of the Championship campaign. How did Nicky Hayen's new-look Clarets fare against one of the league favourites? What were we doing for the first goal? Were those demons of a sloppy defence still haunting the Clarets? And what are we going to do going forward to replace Zian Flemming? In part two, we enter the world of Nicky Hayen's Claret and Blue Army. We dissect the little changes that he's brought across the club to get the fans on board, the board connected, the players connected, and everybody singing from the same hymn sheet. Are Burnley back? Have we got the same grit and resilience that we had in previous seasons? And could he be the one to unite the fans? This is a Nicky Hayen era, and we are here for it. Join us for this week's episode. Okay, so let's introduce our panel for this week's podcast. Tom Whittaker, welcome back, sir. How are we?
I'm very well, thank you. Excuse me if I'm struggling to speak a little bit. That Zian Flemming equaliser has done a number on my throat.
That is absolutely justified. And don't we all have a slightly hoarse throat after that fantastic equaliser? Don't get overexcited. We're going to come on to that in a minute. And George Poole, welcome back to the podcast. It's been a while. Where in the world are you, sir?
It has been a while. Hola, Clarets, ¿cómo estás? You're speaking to Spanish George here. It's a bit like when Buzz Lightyear goes into Spanish mode. Because I've moved to Catalonia in Girona. So, yeah, I'll be speaking to you from Spain for the foreseeable future.
That we absolutely love. I do want somebody who's much better technologically than I am to do some kind of AI meme with George in the Spanish Buzz Lightyear. Can somebody match that up for me and send it? That would be great. Okay, well, we've got plenty to talk about. Let's start with part one of this show where we are looking back at that absolutely fantastic result. It's weird to be celebrating a draw at home in such circumstances, but I think the nature of the opponent, the nature of the last 3 years being a Claret, and the timing and nature of those goals just made it feel much more like a win than it did a draw. Burnley, in their opening fixture of this Championship campaign, faced West Ham United, title favourites, and widely regarded as absolutely going to walk all over the league and probably get record number of points as well. West Ham United going down 2-0, 10 minutes was the first one. Basically, the first corner they conceded, which had a slightly inevitable feel about it. And then 72 minutes where Solomon put them 2-0 ahead. But the Clarets, this Clarets cohort, do not know when they are beaten, with a brace from Zian Flemming on the 83rd minute, a penalty, and the 92 minute +2 to draw the Clarets level. Tom, obviously, you're talking here about the hoarseness of your voice. I think for me, the biggest thing was just the absolute elation of being back in the Championship with a late equaliser, with one glance at the Lioness flag that stays down, and you can just celebrate with unbridled joy. Like, that felt like some moment to be back crying.
Yeah, it was really, really special. And I think you hit the nail on the head there with the no VAR thing. It's one of the things that we're all looking forward to, being back in the Championship. And it was just like you say, just like the roof came off, didn't it? It was, yeah, there was a really good feeling in the stadium. I thought, especially in the second half, but throughout the game, really, pre-match, it felt like a new beginning, like the slate had been wiped clean a little bit. The response of the players to going 2-0 down as well. You know, we've just had a season where, I mean, we used to play a game, the people around me, where we have a shot on target before we go 1-0 down. And we'd had about 3 shots in the first 5 minutes on Sunday. So it was like, there's a better feeling with that already. And then, you know, even at 2-0 down this time last season, you know, you're thinking that's game over. Parker's probably going to put another defender on here and just keep the score down. But Hayen's response is, you know, get another attacker on, get another striker on. We're having a go. We're quite unlucky to be 2 down. You know, it wouldn't have been unfair if it was 1 apiece, you know, at that point. And there still felt like there was belief in the stands. It still felt like there was belief on the pitch. That goal kind of comes out of nowhere a little bit, doesn't it? The penalty. It's a bit of a daft challenge from there, lad. And before that happened, you kind of thought maybe we've lost our chance. But when it was 2-1, you know, I think there was a lot of belief the players, the manager, the fans, that we were going to go and get that second, and we were knocking on the door for it. And the moment that I really loved on Sunday, it wasn't just the head loss, the roof going off when that goal went in. It was the fact that the players' response was, let's get that ball and let's try and get a third.
Yes.
You know.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah. It was brilliant to see that. And it was like, oh yeah, it was like, it really felt like that really set the tone for what the season's going to be like. And it's like such an amazing contrast to last season. It was a brilliant feeling coming off. And like you say, when you're 2 down with 10 minutes to go, it feels like a win, doesn't it? Brilliant.
Yeah. I think that's probably a fair point. There's some really good points there to sort of bounce off for the rest of the podcast, George. I think you're absolutely right. Even when we went 2-0 down, even when we went 1-0 down, 2-0 down, there was a little bit of an event. Listeners, I've lost the ability to say that word. Inevitability around the opening goal, where it was the first set piece, a corner, shocking. Let's come on to that in a minute. But even when we went 2-0 down, there was no panic in the stands. It didn't feel like it did last season. It's like you say, it just felt very calm and very. And I do wonder how much of that was because it was a West Ham side and we didn't really expect to beat them, although we probably should have. But picking up on one of the points that Tom said there, George, the impact of the substitutions. My goodness, I can't remember when we were in a period where we brought players on to actively change a game, not just like for like or fresh legs in the same position. And we saw players, we saw some of the old guard players that we've written off, Amdouni, Brozier, to an extent, Josh Loren as well, who actually came on and made a difference. Now that, to me, is hugely positive in terms of signs going forward.
Yeah, it was you could almost call it a perfect start for Hayen because, okay, at the end of the day, we didn't get the 3 points, but I think the manner of the performance and the points that we did get just told you everything you needed to know about this manager. And he's already got the buy-in from the fans. And I know we're going to touch on that more in part 2 in the manager in particular. But your biggest problem really with Scott Parker, as Tom's alluded to, last season and possibly in some of the championship campaign prior, is that it was just all a little bit negative. And okay, we might get beat in the Premier League, it happens, but it was the manner of the defeats. It was the way you saw the players just sort of walking around at times, and it felt all a little bit soft. Like there wasn't really high standards going on at the club, and you can't really get behind a team when they're just folding and just being turned over week in, week out. And you saw the complete opposite on Sunday, where you had a team that has gone 2-0 down against a really good West Ham team who are favourites for the title, and more importantly, are way more settled than us right now through the transfers. We're like 4 weeks behind what that team is in terms of their dealings. So you were 2-0 down against a team like that, and you still managed to come back and to fight and rally in the last 10 minutes and take a 2-2 draw. I think that just tells you everything you need to know about Hayen, about the mentality he's putting in the squad. So for me, it's almost a perfect start because, okay, at the end of the season, if 2 points is the difference between us going up and staying down, it's going to be gutting. But I really think it's the getting things off to a good start that's the most important thing. So the manner in which we managed to come back from 2-0 down is so positive.
Yeah, completely agree. There was a little bit of the old regime that came into the game, though, Tom. So let's get this out of the way first. Very early. You actually touched on it incredibly. I think I tweeted throughout the game that I had more fun in the first 3 minutes of that game than I did in the entirety of last season because we looked good. And I know JBL's had a little bit of criticism, some rightly, some wrongly, in my opinion, but he was creating chances. There were balls. There was really good pockets of possession, and I think we got a bit sloppy in the second half. But I think, generally speaking, our passes were they had purpose and they went to the right people and they were in the right shape to get some crosses going. First corner, terrible defending, free header, and we're suddenly 1-0 behind. So I guess the question to you then, Tom, is what is that a result of? Is it a result of poor technicality in terms of defence, or is it that hangover from last season's squad that we can't defend a set piece? Or neither?
There's a bit of a mix, I think. I mean, you look at the centre halves we've got a young kid, and he played well. I'm not singling him out, and obviously he wasn't to at fault for the goal either. But centre half, you've got a young kid who's making his first game. He's only had one training session, and then you've got a 36-year-old right back. And again, I thought he did all right. He didn't do very well for the goal, but I think when you've got such a makeshift defence, you look at the famous back five we had under Parker, where it was, you knew it was Trafford in goal every week. It was Egan Riley and Stev, and obviously we've not replaced Stev yet, I don't think. And we had better on the fullback positions as well. And Humphreys, I thought Humphreys had a good game, but I think I'd rather see him at centre half than at fullback.
I thought there was parts in the first half where he did struggle a little bit. I was a bit but yeah,
I think he did a good job on Bowen overall, but yeah, he had his moment, didn't he? And then Sonner, he's probably our third choice right back, isn't he? With Roberts being injured and Walker obviously over at centre half. So in terms of personnel, you're at a bit of a disadvantage there, and I don't think that's going to be the back five we see for the whole season. But that's not quite settled down yet, so that's part of it. And then at the time when you're watching it, you're just thinking, why is Aaron Ramsey marking Max Kilman? That's a terrible kind of mismatch, isn't it? And then I heard, obviously I was at the game, so I didn't watch the TV coverage, but apparently Rob Green was saying what they're trying to do here is Walker's meant to come out and attack that, and then Ramsey's just there to block the run kind of thing. And obviously that, if that's the idea behind it, that obviously needs some more work on the training ground.
Work on that a little bit more, lads.
Yeah, because Walker stood there waiting for the bus and he's not doing anything about it.
More drills required.
Yeah, I don't think Ramsey is really the man that I'd be picking to even, not just mark, but I wouldn't be having him to block off centre half. He's about twice his size, to be fair to him. So, yeah, so if that was the idea, it needs a bit of work, but at least you can see what the idea was, I suppose. And then the second goal as well, the ball gets cleared out to the left hand side, and then you've got Edwards on that side, and he's just, he can't defend at the best of times, can he? But I thought then, we're so kind of sucked in and narrow. Their lad kind of gets to the touchline with little challenge from Edwards, and I'm not knocking Edwards for that. It's not his game, but someone come across and help him, and that ball comes in the box, and you've got Vice doing his Lee Grant impression, tip it straight out into the middle to the centre forward.
Well, he's a puncher, isn't he? He's not a catcher. I noticed that on Saturday.
Yeah, and he did it against Ajax as well in the friendly, just tip one straight out to the feet of the centre forward. You need to work on that. I think it's a bit different, that one, because he's coming across and he can't, with the pace it's coming, he can't get a great hand on it, but it's a bit of a trend that I've noticed with him. And that's another kind of personnel thing, I suppose. I don't know if we are going to look to, there's been rumours out there about a goalie from Belgium, whether he's going to be the number one the whole season, I'm not sure. I think he's got potential to improve, but I'm not sure it's quite there yet. But yeah, as I say, it's a mix of things. And we know from the way that we've been set up this season, it took us a month longer to get a manager in than it should have. Was it 2 months in total it took us to replace Parker?
Really
so he's going in, we're starting playing the friendlies before the manager's even got his suitcase in the office, And then we've still not made all the signings yet. I say Elaine's only had one training session at centre half. We probably still need another one in there. There's rumours about Ekdal going in there, and then so you'd imagine either Tuan Zabi or somebody else is going to come in. And hopefully the plan isn't to have Walker at centre half the whole season, because while I think he did well, I don't think he's the man there. So we're still a bit undercooked, aren't we? And you could see that going forward as well. I think Ramsey, he was really getting onto him, especially in them first 10 minutes, like you say, making these runs, getting forward, but you can tell he's so rusty. His shooting boots weren't on at all. And then the amount of times, the last sort of 20 minutes of that first half, we'd break, we'd find space, we'd rip him apart, we'd get to the edge of the box, and then we'd put his foot on it and run straight into the defender. Yeah. It was so frustrating. So you can tell just there's little things like that haven't clicked yet. But what I liked was you could see what the idea was, you could see what the plan was. And it's not there yet. It's obviously not perfect yet. And we, as we've said, the way that the summer's been handled, the players and the manager are starting from they've not had enough of a run up at it to start the season in the way that we would have wanted. But we've still got a point, like I say, one of the most difficult home games we'll have this season. And I think there's good signs there. But obviously there's a lot to work on as well. And I'm sure Hayen's aware of that too.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. George, just sticking with that defence then, interestingly that Tom talks about Sonny, whatever how you pronounce it, is our third choice right back. Him and Max Lane actually at the weekend were the two standout performances for me. This is just my personal opinion in that defence. I think Humphreys grew into the game, and he was having a bit of a tough time in having to defend against some real threat there from the West Ham forwards. For me, I think Vice he either needs to grow into the game or he's not going to be the one for us this season. I do worry about a little bit about his ability to command his box and also his physicality in some of those situations as well. Kyle Walker for me, I don't have a rapport with Kyle Walker. I don't have an affinity for him since he got in here. So if he needs to move on, I'm all right with that. If he stays, he has my full backing. But despite his first performance, I think Max Lane showed some real composure on the ball and some commandment of his space that was much more way above his years and his experience. And I thought Son really stepped up and really helped drive and organise that back five. I mean, does that resonate with what you saw, or do you have a difference with our defence? How do you push that across?
I think the biggest positive and the highest praise you could give Max Lane is that, to be honest, I didn't notice him all game. I thought, he did his job. He did it well. Yeah. He's 19 or 20 years old. And sometimes when, you bring a young kid, okay, I get he's had plenty of experience before at the championship level as well. But a new team, like Tom said, only one training session. Sometimes you can throw them in and they can look a bit like Bambi on ice or a bit disjointed from the rest of the defence. And honestly, I didn't notice him in the slightest. So I think that's the highest praise I could give him. He's come with a really good reputation at Watford. It was at Watford he was at, wasn't it? He was fantastic. And they were gutted when he got recalled by City. And then he went and played a few games for City in the Cup and really impressed again there. So from what I've heard, he's got a fantastic reputation. And I think even after this one showing, you can see he's just going to be rock solid for us at that centre position all season. Let's hope there's no injuries or whatnot, because I think he can hold that position all season and do exactly what players like Taylor Hallwood-Bellis have done before him, Michael Keane before that, where they impress as young players. Okay, they might not spend the rest of their career with us, but he'll play a very important role for us this season. On the left-hand side, I disagree with Tom slightly in that I think Humphreys is comfortably our best left-back option. Okay, Tom, I know you're not saying he isn't. But for me, I want Humphreys to play left-back all season because I don't see any better option there. And I don't think we'll bring in a better option either. And I think that's my issue with the whole Kyle Walker debate is, okay, he's not fantastic as a centre-back just because it's not been his position throughout his career. But I think it's all clear to see he doesn't have the legs to play right-back anymore. And that's why Burnley have moved him into a centre-back position. A bit like your Wayne Rooney's coming back from being a striker to a centre mid later in the career. This kind of change happens, and I don't think we're in the market to buy someone who's significantly better than Kyle Walker. And the same with Vice in nets. We're being linked with these younger keepers from Belgium.
Yeah,
happy days. Bring them in. They'll be a nice number two. But you've given Vice the number one kit for a reason. I think he's our first choice goalkeeper, and it's just going to be one of them where there's learnings to be had, and he's not going to be completely fantastic from day dot, but clearly there's a keeper that they fancy there, and he's got a bit of potential. James Trafford, a shining example of someone who at the very start, you might think, bit of concern there about him. Should Muric be playing? Remember that debate? And then he turned into a fine keeper. So I think you just got to hope that that's the same with this fella. And yeah, at the right back position for me, obviously, hopefully Connor Roberts is back at full fitness sooner rather than later. But Son, again, I didn't really notice him too much. So that's probably the biggest praise I can give him.
Yeah, that's a good one. Okay, let's move to the other end of the pitch then, and we'll finish off this segment by talking about the fantastic Zian Fleming to round this off. But before we get to that point, let's get to the front of the pitch, Tom. Perhaps some of the most proactive and dynamic and attacking threat, whether or not it ended in a goal, that we've seen in a long time. Obviously, Parker is not a manager who's known for his attacking and creative football, but that it's just a different kind of football that he plays. I think I'd been so suppressed with the football that we'd seen over the last 3 seasons that I'd forgotten what it was like to actually go, oh my God, we're racing down the wing here. We're creating passes. Who for you, Tom, were the key players in terms of the creativity and the chances that we created, which for me, by the way, I thought we created more than West Ham did. I'm going to throw that out there. I think I think we created much more. Who for you were the key players in the front of the park?
Yeah, it goes back to what I was saying before, really, about the first half, when I think there was 3 in the midfield. You had Edwards, Hannibal and Ramsey, who all looked kind of really good in the middle of the park. They were carrying the ball really well. And then they'd either pick the wrong option, they wouldn't see a man over the other side. There was one bit where Hannibal could have played Brun Larson and he was on his own. And he tried to cut inside the defender, and he was just, but that happened so often, especially in the last sort of 20 minutes, that first half. But I thought we looked more dangerous in the second half. We went a little bit more direct, like we were kind of playing, we're trying to get the ball to Fleming more, because I think in the first half, Fleming was a bit isolated. He wasn't getting the service he needed. He looked a bit frustrated, I thought. But in the second half, I think it was more like just get the ball in the box, let Fleming attack it. And he had a series of headers, didn't he? A couple that he should have put on target. Then he was really unlucky with that one that hit the inside of the post. Even more unlucky with the one that got cleared off the line. But I thought that with Edwards, it was kind of like in the first half, he was coming inside and then he didn't know whether to shoot, whether to lay it off. He was trying these little fancy flicks that sometimes they look really good and sometimes they just gave the ball away. And it was like in the second half, they just said to him, look, come inside, get that ball over, get Fleming's head on it. And then we looked like we were going to score then. And in the first half, we had a lot of the ball in the first sort of 10 minutes and maybe the last sort of 15, 20 minutes of the first half. But I don't think their keeper had anything to do in that first half. And it was when we went a bit more direct and when we tried to get Fleming into the game more, for me, that we looked more dangerous. And it's, the big question now is whether we hang on to him, because it's, with that focal point, we look really dangerous. But I just worry about what it's going to be like if he goes. You know, if we have that young lad we've bought, the Kazakhstani guy we've got from Chelsea.
He looks good.
He does. But he ain't going to be winning them headers. Amdouni's not going to be winning them headers. So what's the kind of plan B?
Is it Brozier? He looked good when he came on, given a full run in the side, dropping down a level. He clearly wasn't up for the Premier League. He struggled for a few seasons. He's had long-term injuries. He's not yet proved to be a promising signing that we thought it was. Is this his season?
Yeah, that's a good question. Because when we signed him the first sort of few games, I thought you can tell he's got the attributes.
Yeah,
he's strong. He's when he wants to be. This is the thing, I suppose, isn't it? He's powerful. He's got a good touch, and we saw all that on Sunday. And it was this mentality was the biggest letdown for me. And I think Richard said it before. It's like if he gets a bit of a knock, or if centre half gives him a bit of a kick, he just doesn't want to know. Then he just goes into a shell. And for a bloke that big, he just seemed like a bit of a wimp, didn't he? Last season, you know.
Okay, let me pause you on there then, Tom, because that's a really interesting point. Was he under the wrong manager? Because one of our biggest criticisms of Parker over the last 2 seasons we felt that he was too soft. We felt that he wanted to be everybody's best mate. We talked all these people who said what a great dressing room it is, and we criticised him a lot for not doing the hardcore managerial things that a manager has to be. You're not their friend, you're their manager. With a much stronger and a much more no-nonsense manager, which Hayen clearly is, does he get that out of him?
Yeah, I think there's a distinct possibility. Obviously, dropping down a level will help as well. If he wants it, he's got to get his career back on track now, because there's a reason that he's still here. Yeah, you look at, Ugachukwu gone, Florentino, etc. All these players have gone. Why is he still here? Because nobody wants him, because he's been dreadful for the last few years. So in some ways, if he wants to have a good career at the top level, he's drinking in the last chance saloon, isn't he? But I think you make a good point about Parker as well. I mean, I just said then, I thought the first few games Bray had at the start of last season, I thought I can see there's something there. I can see there's a bit of a player there. And I could list so many players last season who the first 2-3 months I thought they looked quite good, and they got progressively worse as the season went on. And I think, and it was a lot of the attacking instincts. I think Parker was coaching out some of those players. I saw Carl Walker put a couple of them big diagonals across on Saturday. He was doing that in the first few games of last season, then it just went. Chowner, we saw him look really good, score that cracking goal against, was it Leeds he scored?
Yeah.
And then fell off a cliff. And then as soon as Parker left for them last few games, he suddenly looked like half a player again, didn't he? So yeah, I think there's an element of that as well. But I think hopefully, Hayen sat down with Brody and told him, there's a big season here for you, and especially if Fleming does go. You've spent a lot of money on him, and you don't know, will we get a replacement? Maybe we will, maybe we won't. But what I was just saying there about big balls in the box, someone to get on the end of it. Of the strikers we've got that aren't Fleming, physically he'd fit the profile, once assuming that Barnes isn't going to get on the pitch.
You've got the tricky flair of the young player who's come in, whose name I haven't yet learned. I'm so sorry, listeners. I will learn that pronunciation for next week. That's my homework. And you've still got, I thought Zeki, I mean, whether we keep Zeki is another thing, but Zeki I also thought looked like the Zeki that I remember when he first came on in the company season. He looked promising again. Like everybody looked. I think that's my biggest thing, George, and I wonder if you felt the same thing. Everybody to me felt different. Or none of the players who started that game, who we saw last season in the Parker regime, looked like the same players. They had their heads up. They had a different style of play. They had a different way. Their body language was different. The way they interacted with the fans and each other on the pitch, their shapes, their formations, and the way they were always looking to get the ball forward. Every single player to me looked different. So why can't everybody have a fresh start? Why can't we keep Hamdouni and Brozier and see if they are the answer now and actually they can do a job for us? Do you think there's hope there?
I think there's hope in terms of the style of play, certainly, because for me, the biggest thing that you noticed was straight away. Okay, I think after the first 10 minutes in the game, to be honest, I thought West Ham really controlled that first half, and I think we sort of went off the boil a little bit. But from the half time onwards, you could tell Hayen had really got into them, and it was night and day. And then after only, I think was it 53 minutes when we made the first substitution, so already he's being proactive there. And in terms of the style of play itself, okay, there's a bit of passing out from the back. It's modern football. I guess we can't get away from it entirely, can we? But then when they go forward quickly. And that is such a difference from last season when you'd pass. And even under Vince Kompany at times, pass. We just got the ball forward. And between getting the ball forward quickly and actually putting crosses into the box, oh my word, it's like watching Burnley Football Club be reborn, because we've been missing this for years. Honestly, for years, right? All these teams that have gone away from crossing the ball when it's a fundamental of football. And you saw in that second half, and specifically in the last 30 minutes, we must have made more crosses than we did in about 10 of the Parker games last season combined. So I think in the style of football, there's certainly hope. I'm a bit less optimistic. I'm a bit more pessimistic than perhaps you, Natalie, in terms of the personnel themselves. I don't think there's a player in Pro here, and I think if there was, you'd have found it 5-6 years ago, because he's done no since he was about 18. But I'm willing to give some of these lads a try. I just worry a little bit, and we'll come into this in part two. Is the squad going to be good enough to match up to what Hayen clearly is capable of? Because I really like the cut of his jib. So I guess we'll just have to see. And right from the off, I'm positive, because the style of football were different. And, and also it's important to say it's possible to turn around a losing squad and a losing mentality.
Yes.
Because as much as we knock Parker, and we do for last season, he managed successfully in the Championship to change, the tide from the company season prior, where the players were really in the pits, and he managed to get a winning team out of that. So, okay, now it's Hayen's job, and I think he's made a very good start, but he just needs the personnel.
Yeah, I agree. Tom, and I'm going to come back to you, George, before we move on to part two. A very quick fire then. Who was the better result from that 2-2? Was it better for Burnley or better for West Ham? This is you, Tom.
I think if you're 2-0 up with 10 minutes to go and you don't win, then it's a bad result for you. So yeah, it's got to be a better result for us.
Yeah. And George, statement of intent from Burnley. Did they show that they can compete and they will be as strong or strong-ish towards West Ham? And will the rest of the league be as worried as we hope they will be?
Yeah, I think it was a statement of intent of our mentality, and I think for us that was the most important thing. And ironically, answering your question to Tom a little bit, I don't think it was the worst result in the world for West Ham. I was watching it on Sky Sports, and they made the very fine point of okay, yeah, West Ham will be gutted if we've gone 2-0 up and then conceded the points. But this is ammunition for Nuno to go to their board and go, here's what I need. And you know them, they're going to spend bank in these last few weeks of the window, and they're going to get the problems they have solved. So I don't think it's the end of the world for West Ham, and I still think they'll be
I mean, if you listen to a lot
strong this season. So I think in the end, the game was positive. You know, come the end of the season, I think this game will be looked back on with positivity from both sets of fans.
Yeah, makes sense. Yeah, and I think it's if you listen to some of the West Ham fans, they would quite like the board to invest in a new manager already, and they've played one game. Well, that's it for part one, Clarets fans. Join us for part two, where we will be looking at the Hayen era, which has commenced at Turf Moor, and dissecting the little tweaks that got the whole of the community from top to bottom singing from the same hymn sheet. Okay, welcome back to part two, listeners. Tom, starting with you. The Nicky Hayen era is here. Nicky Hayen's Claret and Blue Army was belting out from the cricket field stand during that game, and the whole club from the very beginning felt like it was together. Now, we understand that Nicky Hayen's got a very joined up way that he wants to operate his club. He wants the fans and the board and the players and the management team all to be on the same page. And what we saw at the weekend, I thought, was a really interesting dynamic as to how the players approached the game. Some of the things, and I'll see what you spotted, but some of the things to me that made a difference. Watching on socials, the players arrive at the ground, walking up the tunnel, headphones off, high fives with the fans, laughing, joking, making eye contact. There was a little bit of togetherness there. There wasn't the like walking up the thing with the headphones on and not looking at anybody. There was some, hi, how are you doing? There was some high fives and everything on getting off the coach into the ground. The warm-up felt different. Everybody was like looking at the crowd, and there was like a bit of chanting and a bit of cheering going on. There was the walk at the end of the game where the players clapped all of the fans off, making eye contact with them, not just paying lip service and leaving. There was a lot of tweaks there, Tom. Can you summarise for us what you felt in the ground and what difference you felt the Hayen era was bringing?
So I'm gonna say now, I don't care about any of that. I don't care what they've got on their head when they're coming into the ground. I don't care what they do in the warm up. I don't care whether they give me a wave as they're going down the tunnel. The reason I thought the atmosphere was very good is because we actually tried to score a goal in the first 20 minutes. That within half a minute, we got down the wing, we'd found some space, whipped the ball in, had a shot. Everyone's up for it then. And everyone was so sick of it, weren't they, last season? I think there's some things that are better as well. We know in the Championship we're going to have a bit more chance of winning some games. I think we all prefer it in the Championship, don't we? It's a new manager, and as much as people are kind of fed up with pace, fed up with the way the club's being run, etc., I don't think there's anyone who's going to games thinking, I don't like this new guy, I want him to fail. Burnley fans were very fair to Parker, I thought. I think we're a good crowd in that sense in a lot of ways, and everyone's willing him to do well. It's his first game. It's a lot of new players as well, so everyone's behind him for that. But yeah, the big thing for me was it was like night and day when it from Parker stuff. That first 10 minutes, we actually wanted to score. We actually wanted to attack. Yeah. Remember when Company's first game at Huddersfield, when we were just like zipping 500 passes around all their players, and it was like, bloody hell, where's this come from? It was a nice change from the Dyche stuff, wasn't it? As much as I love Dyche, but it was a different kind of football, and it was a more entertaining kind of football. And for me, I like Hayen. I think he speaks very well in his interviews. He's very to the point. I think a really probably an unintended benefit of his appointment was that he seems to understand football fans, and a lot of the kind of disconnect that we've had between the fans and the club. The ideas from people like Russell Ball, or let's get a drummer, or Alan Pace's idea, let's call everybody 3-year-olds, that'll get them on side. But with Hayen, it's like, he's saying that I want to get on the front foot, I want to give them something to cheer. I want the players to acknowledge that people are paying their hard earned to come and watch them. And I quite like the fact he's drawn the line in the sand with, well, we're going to give you this, we need this from you, get behind us for 90 minutes, etc. And he sounds like he means it, doesn't he? He's not just paying lip service to the idea. He sounds like he really wants that good connection. Even little things like when we score, you got Parker with his £1,200 jacket with his hands in his pockets. I remember at Forest away last year, and we 1-0 up at half time and we got back to 4. People picked their hard in to go and watch that, knowing that we're rubbish and we're already relegated. And he was like shuffling over to the away end with his hands in his pockets, walking like a snail. And he knows he's going to get some stick, fine. But, you've got to be the bigger man there and you've got to come out and acknowledge it. And the body language from Hayen's a lot better, isn't it? He's kind of chest out. He was pumping the air and stuff when we scored. So I think he's said the right things, and people want them to do well, and people want it to go well. So you've got a bit of a brighter kind of feeling around the ground because of that. But the big thing for me, like I say, I'm not bothered if he came out pre-match, Nicky Hayen, and went, "Oh, do you know what? That Tom Whittaker, look at that receding hairline, get that beard trimmed, the size of his nose, he's a right tit." But then we went at him and we scored 3 in the first 10 minutes. I'd be like, yes, give him a new 10-year contract. You know what I mean? I'm not bothered if he says the right things. Just play some good football, win some games. I've still not seen us win a game. I'm not counting. I've still not seen us win a competitive game since bloody October. Go to West Brom next week and stick 5 past them. You can say whatever you want about the fans. You can call me a 2-year-old if you want. Let's win some games. Let's play some great football. And that's what we got on Saturday. We didn't win the game, but we got some great football. I really enjoyed it. I was happy coming off. That's all we want.
Yeah, that's true. George, what's your perspective on this? And I think the reason why I'm asking this question is that obviously we did see from Hayen, as Tom pointed out then, we saw a different body language. We saw passion. We saw him cheering when his arms in the air with the fans. And we have seen some conscious efforts from this new manager and the players to really concentrate on that fan engagement. And one of the things that I found interesting about it is that we got what we wanted as fans. We didn't want any more Parker ball. We wanted that era to be gone. We were kind of fed up of it in the championship season, but we got us promoted, so we were all right with it. But last year was one of the most abysmal, appalling years we've ever had watching this club. And so we got what we wanted. So for me, it's now our turn to play our part. It's now on us. We have to uphold our part of the bargain, and we have to try and stop the negativity. We try and have to get behind them and cheer them for 95 minutes and not get downhearted. Is that going to work for you if Nicky Hayen does continue with this commitment to fan engagement and bringing everybody together? Or do you agree with Tom? Is it simply down to, well, if you don't get the results on the pitch, nothing's going to work?
Well, contrary to what Nicky Hayen might think, I do think your haircut looks fantastic, Tom, and I'm envious of your beard. So I'll draw a line in the sand there and say that. But in terms of the manager...
You've got his beard on your upper lip, George. When is that coming off? Is Spanish George not going to shave that off, for goodness sake? Sorry, carry on.
Continuing with my fantastic moustache, which all the listeners and especially the viewers always pay compliments to. I will say that in Nicky Hayen, we've got a manager here that feels like one of us. Because, okay, he's from Belgium. He's not from Lancashire. Spoilers. But he's a fella who had a middling career as a footballer in Belgium, worked and grafted his way through his career to actually become a very dependable footballer within Belgium. And then in his managerial career, I mean, just look at his Wikipedia. I mean, this lad has grafted to get where he is now. Managing, what was it, Watersford County or something in Wales, doing a good job there and keeping them in the Welsh Premier, and then going back to Belgium and working his way, under 21s coach, and then taking a job on an interim basis. And he's worked hard to get where he is. And from the moment he was appointed, that came across in all the interviews he's done. He just seems like a fellow who there's no airs and graces. He's very humble. He's very demanding. And you can tell he's got standards for the club and for the players and for the staff. And as a fan, especially as Burnley fan, the history of the town, we can buy into that so much. It's night and day from imagine we'd appointed Steven Gerrard because Alan Pace likes a footballer who had a reputation, as being one of the world's best, and therefore we can sign young players who want to come and play for the fancy manager. No, we've got a guy here who has worked hard to get where he is now, has come into the club and bought into it from day one. You know, he's saying all the right things. He's paying homage to the fans and specifically talking about how important the fans' role is in the club. I mean, we didn't hear this from Scott Parker, you know, especially in that Premier League season last year. It's like like Tom said, he turned his back on us. He'd given up, hands in the pockets. And you compare that to Hayen on Sunday, and he's giving it big uns when we score. And it's just such a refreshing change. So, yeah, I guess to answer your question in a very roundabout way, the results, of course, are important, right? Don't get me wrong, but they'll come. What's most important for the time being is that the fans have bought into this manager. And let me tell you, they have. You know, you see him going into the Royal Dyche on Sunday evening after the game. I mean, if there's one way to get the fans on side, it's to go into local boozer, isn't it? And he was mobbed. He was mobbed, not because he's the Burnley manager necessarily, but because the fans have bought into Nicky Hayen, Burnley manager. So for me, it's a positive start. Look, the results will come down the line, but it was so important to get the fans on side. And Nicky, we're all yours. We're with you.
Wow. I feel like I need to finish the podcast there, and then I feel like that was some line to sound about. I'm going to clip that and put it on our socials. We touched on this before. If you're Nicky Hayen now, Tom, because this is a really great start to the season, but I'm also very aware of the first month of Scott Parker's championship season where we looked like in the first 3 or 4 games, 5-0, 4-0, whatever it was, the results 3-1, it looked like we were going to never get beat in the championship and have record numbers. And then we sold all of our players at the end of August and we started that Sunderland game with the most bizarre squad I've ever seen. So I'm still, tender about that. And I'm still a little bit nervous about that. If you're Nicky Hayen, how do you keep hold of Zian Fleming for a start? Because I think he's really important to us here without hiding him in a cupboard. God, do you remember the old days when we used to tweet about locking people in cupboards before the transfer window was done? Do you remember that? That was always quite amusing. So what do you do if you're Nicky Hayen, Tom, to keep hold of Zian Fleming? And what is your contingency plan if you do have to sell him or anybody else in the squad?
I think, well, when you say anybody else, there's no one we'd miss half as much as Fleming, is there? I don't think, especially in terms of what else we've got in the squad. I think anyone else we'd have really missed has already gone. It's a difficult one, isn't it? Because if a Premier League team comes in for him and he wants to go, it's a hard one to say, well, look, if they'd have come in 4 weeks ago, we'd have let you go. But now that you've actually had a good start to the season, we're not going to, does his head go down? Does he stop? Does he throw his toys out the pram? I don't know. He doesn't seem like the type, does he? But then if they've got if they've said to him in the summer, and they obviously are telling this to all the players because that's what I say, a lot of them must sign with the promise of that, you put yourself in the shop window, you do well, we will let you go. So you couldn't really begrudge him if it depends who comes in, I suppose, as well, doesn't it? Because say if Brentford came in for him, he might not be first choice at Brentford, but if he wants to go there, they're not going to go down, I wouldn't have thought, this season. So you'd have to say, well, fair play, if you want to go, they pay the right money, then we will do. I'd be a bit nuts if Ipswich or Hull came in for him and he went, because you just think, well, that you're going to be back with us in a season, aren't you?
Yeah. So
there's that. It very much depends on who comes in for him. I suppose what you would say to him, especially after the way the game went on Saturday, is did he have 9 shots? I think I read, and some of them were part shots and stuff, weren't they? But you could say to him, look, you could maybe go to a Leeds or a Brentford or something like that. Play 15 games, you're off the bench half the time, get a few run-outs in the Carabao Cup or whatever. If you stay here, you're going to get 5 chances every game. You might be racking up some generational numbers the way we play football, the way we're attacking. And everyone's going to love you. And then, maybe if you've got a good few in January and someone comes in with a silly offer, maybe we'll let you go then. If we go, if we do really well and go up at the end of the season, then you're back in the Premier League. And if we don't go up at the end of the season, then that's a good time for us to shake hands and say thank you for everything and you've earned a move. But I think really it's not in Hayen's control, is it? It's going to come down to who comes in for him, what kind of money they offer. And maybe there's a part of us that is going to say, well, look, if it's getting to the last week of the window, sorry, but unless we get a replacement lined up, and as much as I was talking up Bro Uriah, I think it's be a massive gamble to just stick with Broja, Foster, and the Turkish lad for and Barnes for the centre forward options for the rest of the season. So I think we'd have to find someone to replace Fleming if he did go, and then maybe the club would have to say to him, look, this is coming too late. We haven't got a chance to replace you, therefore we can't let you go. And we'd have to see how he reacted to that, won't we? But yeah, I don't think it's in Hayen's court, unfortunately. I think it's going to be up to who comes in for him and up to Fleming himself. But hopefully, you know, the way that the game went on Sunday, Fleming can see now that there's going to be he's not going to be trudging a lone furrow like he was under Parker. The team's going to be set up to get the best out of him, and it's going to enhance his CV, and hopefully that works for everyone all around.
Yeah, I agree. Final word from you on the Clarets, George. Are Burnley back?
In spirit, but possibly not in, I don't know, in reality, because I think to your concerns there, let's see where we are come the end of the window, because not only in terms of outgoings, but I still think we're a long way off, you know, on the incomings front. I think you saw that team on Sunday, and they did marvellously well to get a point out of West Ham. But let me say, you know, Edwards, I could blow him over. Ramsey, I could blow him over. You know, gust of wind and these lads would topple. So for me, these guys, okay, they might have a role to play, and I wouldn't like to see Ramsey or Edwards particularly shipped out. But for me, they can't be starting week in, week out. You know, if you can keep an Amdouni, fantastic, because then he can play in that number 10 position. But there's certainly work. Let's just say there's work to be done on incomings. Never mind, you know, a few more lads going out the door. Now, don't get me wrong, there's going to be some lads who, you know, there's plenty of lads who work in that squad who need to go. You know, your Michael Obafemis, if you can get, you know, a packet of crisps for him, you'd be happy. But in terms of Fleming, we cannot let this guy go for anything less than 30 million. Because even though a Palace, you know, you might think, well, they could get him for 20 million from us. He's worth so much to us because he's our only goal-scoring striker. And therefore, if he does leave, and, you know, we might have to shake hands with him and say, fair enough, you've earned your move, because he did. He was fantastic last season. We need the money to replace him, because I'm telling you now, none of the lads who are at Turf Moor right now are good enough to replace him and lead the line for us. So we'll need to bring someone in. And teams will know we need to bring someone in, so they'll charge a premium. So we need the money, you know, wherever it comes from, we need that money, whether it comes from Everton, you know, through the courts or through a team, through a transfer. We need the money to replace this guy if he goes. So I think that's my only concern. I'm all in on Hayen. I'm all in on the style of play. I think the fans have bought into him, and I'm really positive coming off Sunday's game. It feels like a fresh change. I can't remember the last time I managed to walk around the place with my Burnley shirt and feel actual pride, and we got that back. Now I just want him to be given the keys to the castle.
Oh wow! Okay, strong finish. Okay, let's wrap up this week's podcast with a couple of bits of news from around the EFL and the football world generally. Sheffield United are in a bit of bother this week, Tom. It looks like they're facing a potential 12-point deduction over a fight with a former owner and a parent club that apparently has gone bust. A stark reminder, I think, of the financial responsibility that clubs have to keep them, and I guess another win for those that justify having the independent football regulator.
Yeah, it's a bit of a mess there, isn't it? And I think it's quite ironic that they were giving it the big one or the Wednesday fans last year when they were relegating them at Bramall Lane with their massive points deduction. And now suddenly Wednesday have got a good takeover. They're a club on the up again, or so it seems. And now it's United's turn. So it's a bad day for the city of Sheffield. But I don't feel any ounce of sympathy for Chris Wilder, I must say that.
Yeah, we won't do that. Second bit of news as well. Today's talking point to come out with the AFL starting this weekend, George, set off by one of the major broadcasters. I believe it was Sky Sports who set this off today. Should the Championship have VAR? Pretty sure.
Certainly not. What's that? That's like one of the easiest questions I've ever been given. You know, I stumbled at the start of this podcast when you said hello. But this is an easy question. The VAR should not come into the Championship. And, you know, we all love the Championship. I would love to be back in the Premier League just for the global prestige, you know, of being a Burnley fan and being able to say, you know, with my chest, yeah, we're a Premier League club. That being said, it's fantastic to be in the Championship and be able to celebrate a goal and say, vamos, you know, Wenger, we've scored a goal, and not have to look sideways at a screen.
Wenger? Where's Arsene come back? I didn't see him in stands. What are you on about, man?
So no to VAR. No. You can sling your hook.
No to VAR. What a way to end this podcast. Listeners, thank you for being on this journey with us this week, for staying with us and listening to the thoughts of my colleagues, Tom and George. Thank you both. That was fantastic input. A really good podcast. I really enjoyed it. Listeners, we'll be back next week where we will be talking again about the Claret era that is going on under Nicky Hayen, and what is our next result going to be? Are we going to get a win under the belt? Are we going to be able to celebrate more goals? How is this going to go? So do stick with us. Now's a good time to hit that subscribe button, whether you're watching on YouTube or whether you are listening through our podcast providers. Please do subscribe and turn on those notifications so you don't miss another episode. My thanks go to everybody at the No Nay Never team for your input in producing this week's podcast, and to you, the listener, for downloading and listening. Your support is very much appreciated, and we would not be here without you. I've been Natalie Bromley. This has been the No Nay Never podcast. Until next time.
The No Nay Never podcast is brought to you in association with the talkSPORT Fan Network. Our host and editor is Natalie Bromley, and the show is produced by Matt Moss. Our resident statistician is Dave Roberts, and our FPL expert is Adam Dennett. The Analysis Show team is collectively Tom Whittaker, Rich Steele, George Poole, Charlotte Rigby and Adam Dennett. Our music is provided by George Gaskell, and our newsletter team is headed up by Jamie Smith. If you don't already, you can subscribe to our newsletter by visiting nonaynever.substack.com. Thanks as ever go to our partners talkSPORT. We are proud to be associated with the talkSPORT Fan Network.